Hello, everyone.
105.
My name is Bella Dinzar. I'm a board member at the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB. Our investigators began arriving here on scene last night, and the rest of our team arrived early this morning to begin our investigation into the AS-350B2 helicopter crash into the East River. The NTSB is an independent federal agency charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation accident and significant accidents in other modes: marine, pipeline, rail, and highway. We also issue safety recommendations aimed at preventing future accidents. Before I go any further, on behalf of all of my colleagues at the NTSB, we extend our hearts out to all of those who were affected by this tragic accident. Our thoughts are with you during this very difficult time. Here's the factual information that we have now. The AS-350B2 helicopter was manufactured in 2013 and registered to the Meridian Consulting Corporation of Kearney, New Jersey. It is powered by a single Safran turboshaft engine. There were 6 people aboard the helicopter, a pilot and 5 passengers, who were on a private photo flight. Shortly before the crash, the pilot radioed ATC, air traffic control, declaring an emergency due to engine failure. The crash occurred at 7:08 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and video captured an auto rotation into the East River. Last night, officials tied off the helicopter off the 23rd Street Seaplane Pier, still upside down. As you may have witnessed earlier this afternoon, officials from local and federal governments recovered the helicopter from the river using divers and a barge. The helicopter is being taken to a secure location where we will be able to examine it carefully. Since this was a photo flight, we will be working with the NYPD to recover any cameras or personal electronic devices from the aircraft that might paint an accurate digital portrait of the last moments of this flight. And before I continue, I want to sincerely thank all the first responders, the local and federal officials who have been involved in the recovery and who have been supporting our investigation. We couldn't do our work without their invaluable help. The NTSB will analyze the facts, determine the probable cause of the accident, and we will issue a report of those determinations. The investigator in charge of this accident is Mr. Todd Gunther. Mr. Gunther is a senior aviation investigator with nearly 30 years of accident investigation experience. He is leading a multidisciplinary team of experts. The NTSB team will be examining the following areas: air traffic control, operations, airworthiness, survival factors, power plants, and weather. In addition to our investigators, we also have specialists from our Office of Transportation Disaster Assistance here to assist victims and their families. We have also held an organizational meeting and established parties to our investigation. The parties are the Federal Aviation Administration, Airbus, and Safran engines. They will provide technical expertise to the investigative process. In addition, assisting us are the NYPD, FDNY, Office of Emergency Management, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the U.S. Coast Guard, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and we appreciate their help. Tomorrow will be our first full day on the scene. Our investigative team will be on scene for about 5 to 7 days. Our mission is to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, so we can prevent it from happening again. We will not be determining the probable cause while we are here on scene, nor will we speculate about what may have caused this accident. And since we're just beginning our investigation, we don't have a great deal of information to report yet, but we will keep you informed by providing regular updates as we find out more. And if the public has relevant information for the investigation, you can email us at eyewitness report at ntsb.gov. And for the latest information on media briefings, you can follow us on Twitter and our website. And Twitter is at NTSB_newsroom, and the website is ntsb.gov. Now, I'd be happy to take a few questions. To ask a question, please raise your hand, and when I identify you, please state your name and your affiliate. Yes.
Adam Reese, NBC News. Can you confirm the helicopter did not have doors? And if so, as a safety official, what are your thoughts on what's becoming a trend apparently, helicopters going up on these photo tours so people can take pictures so they can show them off on Instagram?
The question is about whether the helicopter had doors and in general about these types of photo shoots. And what we do know is this type of helicopter, it was legal to have the doors open. We don't know exactly what the situation was, but that's what we're going to look at now that the helicopter has been pulled up out of the river. We're going to inspect all that and see what is going on and what actually was happened at the moment, which is why things like video and other information that the public may have is so important for us. Yes.
Vice Chair, two questions. One is about the harnesses. Some who were in a sister helicopter talked about how difficult it is to get out of the harnesses in general. And secondarily, can you talk about the floats? I mean, this is something that has to be maintained just like a engine or anything else. If both floats had operated correctly, which the pilot said they did not, if both floats had operated properly, would we have had this tragedy?
So this is a two-part question. I'll answer the latter one first about the floats, about whether they were operating correctly and whether, if they were operating correctly, if this would have happened. The floats did inflate, as you may have seen from the helicopter being pulled up. What we're going to look at is how they inflated, if there were any problems with them. When floats do inflate, there are times when the helicopter will still not necessarily stay afloat. So we're going to look into that. And as I said before, it's because we've just recovered the helicopter from the river. And I'm sorry, David, what was the second?
What are the regulations? Is that something that will be part of your investigation? Somebody who flew in a sister helicopter last night said it was not easy to get out of, when they're on the ground, to get out of their harnesses.
The second question is about the harnesses and about whether there's difficulty getting in and out. What we do know is that it was a photo flight. There were harnesses. We will be looking at other sister helicopters. We'll be looking at this helicopter to see whether the harnesses were functioning and whether the passengers were using them. So all of that will go into effect. And let me just make sure that our IIC, our investigator in charge, doesn't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, in regards to the harnesses, we have heard information that's come forward from a number of individuals regarding the harness system in this particular helicopter, and then also in sister helicopters. And we've heard information about that some people have been discussing that. That's something we'll be looking into. We have brought with us our survival factors group, which consists of survival factor specialists that are trained in the examination and analysis of restraint systems. So that will be part of the investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Gunther. Yes.
Hi, Alison Fox in New York and Newsday. I'm wondering, can you talk about anything that the pilot has said to you this far? And then also, was it possible that the harnesses actually got tangled in the emergency fuel shutoff switch, and that could have potentially led to problems?
So two questions. One is whether we know anything about the harnesses, and again, it's too early to know. We'll be looking exactly at what happened with the harnesses. The other question was about the pilot and whether we have spoken to him. And no, he was he was obviously injured and in the hospital. We will be asking him to be interviewed, and we hope he'll comply, because obviously our only purpose here is to ensure that this type of accident doesn't happen again. Yes.
tell us where the helicopter took off from and how long it was in the air before it crashed? And also, any details about the pilot, for example, is it how much flying experience?
The question is, do we have any information about the pilot and about where the flight took off? That is actually what we're looking into. This aircraft does take off from a number of different places, so we want to make sure we know exactly where it took off for this flight. And we will be looking into the pilot's background, but we don't have any information on that yet.
Yes. I wanted to ask, Nate Sherman, New York Times. I wanted to ask if any mechanical problems had ever been reported before with this particular helicopter, and if there was any information on when the last time it was serviced.
The question is about this helicopter, whether we have any information on when it was serviced or had any mechanical problems. And no, since we have just arrived on scene today, we'll be looking into all those records. That's a normal part of our investigative process, is to look at when it was last serviced and whether it's had any maintenance problems in the past.
On the flotation devices, do you inspect those? Do they go through any sort of testing periodically on those devices that are meant to prevent it from flipping over?
So the question is about the flotation devices. Do you want to address that, or shall I? Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things about flotation devices on those helicopters are used, it's not something similar that you would see with a helicopter that has fixed pontoons. They're designed to be deployed by the pilot or in contact with the water, depending on the make and manufacture of the flotation device and the helicopter itself. In this case, there are 3 flotation devices, 3 on each skid of the helicopter. As you noticed before, when you looked out on the water, when the helicopter both came to rest and was towed into the pier, that all 3 had deployed. Now, one of the things that we will be looking at with those devices is what the sequence of events was. As for the deployment, did they deploy properly? Additionally, in regards to your question about certification and then also maintenance, there are certification requirements for those floats, and there are also maintenance requirements for those floats, and that'll be something that we'll be looking into.
Thank you, Mr. Gunter. Yes.
Hi, Arthur Chan from Fox 5. 2 questions. The first is, in your vast experience covering this, have you ever seen an emergency fuel switch tripped? Is there a cover on it that would have prevented it? But in your experience, have you seen it before? And then the second question is, does your agency have the power to ask this helicopter operator or to order them not to operate until you've finished some of your findings?
The question is, do we have the authority to ask this operator to stop working or stop operating until we have findings? And that is not within the NTSB's purview. It's the purview of the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. But what we do here is we will investigate very carefully if there are any safety issues, whether it's particular to this operator or systemic throughout operations. We will issue, if needed, an urgent safety recommendation, and that means that it comes out as soon as it's needed in order to prevent this from happening again. So that will be done if it's needed, if there's a safety issue that we believe is urgent.
And excuse me, the first part was whether or not, in your experience, you've ever seen a switch like this triggered by one of the passengers on a flight.
So the question is, have we ever seen a trigger like this triggered, or anything like this triggered? I can tell you we have seen many things that have happened in an airplane. I personally have not seen this type of accident happen. And would you like
Nor
to?
have I, and that's something we're looking into.
But we certainly will look into it.
Last question?
Yes.
Hi. 2 questions about the emergency engine cutoff is my first one. Do you know, I know you said it's from 2013, but does the chopper have a 1 or 2 stage process from the emergency engine cutoff? In other words, once you do the emergency engine shut off, is there another one that sets in, or is it just that one simple switch?
So this is an AS350B2. I'm not sure if that is, do we know that at this point?
We don't know that at this point.
Sorry, we do not know that at this point, but we will be checking that.
Okay, and then my other question is about the airspace. Was the helicopter too close to LaGuardia? Was there anything wrong with the airspace?
So the question is about the airspace, and we will be looking exactly the flight pattern and the airspace, but what you should remember is the pilot did declare an emergency, and in that case, there are special considerations. I don't know if our IIC would like to add anything. Is that? So when a pilot has declared an emergency, there are some I suppose less strict requirements.
There was talk of potentially the pilot telling investigators that maybe one of the passengers' bag hit a switch. Did you have that communication with the pilot at all?
The question is what the pilot has told investigators, and we have not spoken to him yet, and we hope to be able to. And we've always had very good relationships with people we've interviewed because they know our purpose is simply to prevent these accidents from happening again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.